Everybody who's here, welcome to this chat that we're having about New Year's resolutions. So welcome, everyone. Great to have you here.
We both are international consultants on high sensitivity, and my program and membership is called Are You Highly Sensitive? And many people on this call are members of Are You Highly Sensitive? And Annette is the lovely host of a fabulous podcast for highly sensitive people. Can you just mention that a little bit, Annette?
Sure. I do have a podcast, Sensitive and Strong. And in it, I'm discussing all kinds of topics that are interesting for HSPs. And not only that I do it on my own, but I interview interesting people also every now and then.
As we've been thinking about this topic and hearing from HSPs about it, Annette ran a poll last week on this whole topic. So why don't we kick it off with the results of the poll?
Yeah, well, I asked indeed, like with the New Year's resolutions, what do we do with that, right? I mean, do we HSPs even make resolutions? So from the poll in the Facebook group, it seems that 50% of the HSPs who reacted to it, they make resolutions throughout the whole year. So not only with on New Year's Day. So that's interesting, I think. I think that's really HSP style, I think, to always improve whenever it's possible. And so about a third do not make New Year's resolutions because they just don't work. They will do new things anytime that comes across their path. And 15% says that it was really difficult to follow through on the resolutions. But I think that's something that is difficult for all of us, right? I mean, you have this thought like, I want to improve this, and then, yes, how to do this, right? And that's, I think, what we all encounter.
I was saying, and I've been saying about the resolutions, that I love every new year that happens. I think of every holiday, every new season, birthday, every event as an opportunity to make more resolutions. I don't usually call them that, though. You know, I think it's, I just wonder, is it a resolution? Is it intention? Is it a goal? I know that I do, maybe I strive a little too much, but I do definitely want to take better care of myself and live a life that is more suitable to my trait. And then the other thing I really, as I put in my newsletter for New Year's, I said, may your year have as much time in optimal level of arousal as you would like. Because I would like to spend a lot more time at optimal level of arousal. So just before we kick off the group conversation, I wonder if folks would like to throw in the chat or in the Facebook comments, what have you been thinking about? Did you make a New Year's resolution? Did you set a new goal or intention? How are you viewing it? Should we kick it off with you, Carlos? Yeah, good.
Certainly. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for providing this meeting forum, if you will. This is my first HSP in 20 years that I've made attempts to create a community. I'm here in Laredo, Texas, and it's been difficult. It's been a lonely road for us guys, as you guys probably know. Am I the only guy here? Probably. I wrote Dr. Aaron 20 years ago. I still have the card, and she so kindly replied. It's a beautiful, I may share what she wrote to me. If you guys ever want to hear what she wrote to me, I'd be glad to. But thank you so much for creating this. It's been sort of lonely for me as a guy.
Yeah.
not too many men talk about these things. And but just to be brief, thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And you know, it's really interesting that half of highly sensitive people are men, or maybe now that we're not always thinking about only two genders, sensitivity to this trait is spread evenly across genders. So it is a lonely place because, at least in the Western culture, it is not particularly valued. You know, we say we want our men to be sensitive, but not highly sensitive, right? But as my son, who's spent some time in Thailand, said, you know, if you're in Thailand, the most popular men are the monks, and they're almost all highly sensitive. So it's just that when you live in a place where it's not as valued, it's not even as valued for women here. And maybe Texas is a little more like Australia, you know, at least I'm in the Bay Area in California, where the men wave their sensitivity flag a little more proudly. So I hear you. And there's a lot of good men's communities happening out there. So I feel free to send me an email and I'll try to connect you a little bit. Thank you so much for sharing. Who else? Can you lower your hand, Carlos? Oh, there, I got it. I figured it out. So I've been saying that I posted in the Alane Aaron group this image I have of a gathering, a Rolling Stone gathers no moss, because that's how I was raised. I was raised in Oklahoma, just Carlos, so I get you. And Chandler, who's here helping us out, is also in Texas. So it's how I was raised to value, be out there, do more. And I'm a sensitive introvert. But I took that on full speed. So now I'm a high sensation seeker too. So my resolution or my intention for 2022, as I said in the post, is to slow down a little bit and gather some moss. And I'm wondering if anybody else can relate to that or what your thoughts are. Do we have any of those HSPs here who say New Year's resolutions? No.
Be curious about that.
So feel free to put your comments in the chat if you don't want to speak out, and I will happily read them here. Somebody says, not really. It's why I'm here, to make progress in New Year 2022 resolutions.
Yeah, that's great.
I once asked Elaine, why do we go to these workshops and these meetings and these trainings and these retreats, and we come out of it with, or at least I do, with all this great intention. I hear from HSPs all the time that so many good intentions to really change life and live it in a different way. And then you get home and it doesn't happen. And maybe you even feel so guilty or frustrated or ashamed or mad at yourself for it. And we were talking about how we kind of tend to live our lives in a state of overstimulation a lot of times. And so it does make it harder to make those changes. I see Annie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's so nice to hear your voice and HSPs. I love this thing about resolutions, because for the first time, I've been knowing about Alane Aaron for 20 years, and somebody gave me the book. I think it saved my life, because I was a school teacher, which I was good with the kids, but it was also overwhelming that I had to retire early because I was overstimulated, is what I realized. So my New Year's resolution is, because I realize now at 62 how much I do get overwhelmed so easily, is just to meet myself where I am with grace and love and let go of trying to be perfect at everything, because it was killing me. And so I'm excited to hear what people have to say. I'm excited to be here and to have more self-love for myself, because I just do get overstimulated, just trying to accept that piece with more love and compassion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. A couple of people have said in the chat, one said, I'm go, go, go all the time as well. I get it from my 94-year-old mom. I would like to slow it down a bit. And another person said, I kind of like the word intentions. What do other folks think about this idea of intentions? I just participated with Are You Highly Sensitive in a really lovely workshop on resilience and highly sensitive people just Friday with my special guest, Linda Graham. And she reminded us about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And the most important piece that she was saying and that we all took away from it was this idea of saying yet. So I'm more critical than I want to be. I'd like to be less critical of myself, but I'm not yet. See how that works? So that it is something that can shift and can change. I took that because a comment in the chat was, I plan to be more intentional and less self-critical. How are you doing on reading these, Annette? I'm missing a bunch.
Yeah, there's a lot of them suddenly, indeed.
Good.
Someone else is saying, like, as still trying to learn to live in a world that seems to value being on the go all the time and do not feel understood for my need to decompress and rest from an active life. So I think, yeah, oftentimes it's also knowing your own overwhelm and having, I think, an understanding of that, to focus on that. I mean, we often try so much to live up to what the world is expecting of us instead of what we want to bring to the world and what we feel is needed.
Right. Absolutely. Someone said, I relate to this, but I've burnt out as a pattern over and over through life. Yeah, gosh. And another person says, intentions are less restrictive than resolutions.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that. I think if I think of it as an intention, I can be a little less self-critical and have a little more inner compassion.
Yeah.
And that's a really good place to go. You know, I know that if I sweat every day, if I exercise to the point of sweating every day, I feel so much better. Everything in my brain works better. My body feels better until I overdo it, but you know what I mean? And yet I can't be always ticked off at myself because so many days go by that doesn't happen. Maybe just the fact that I took 3 deep breaths is good for me today. You know?
Yeah. I mean, we often do that, right? So being so hard on ourselves, if we don't, I mean, being perfectionists often, that we are so hard in judging ourselves, like, oh, I didn't do this, I should have done it. And I think we really need some more self-compassion to, if something doesn't work out this day, then, well, okay, tomorrow's another day, just try it again.
Yeah. And remember that self-critic, that's something we all developed as little kids to survive being sensitive in a world that didn't really quite understand us. And we can bless and thank that self-preservation skill that we had, but say, thank you very much. I don't need you anymore. I got this. I can take care of and protect us without being such a critic. Here's someone said, I tried to phrase mine in a less pressured, more achievable way this year. Things like stay creative, increase and maintain self-care, etc. That way I can decide how much, oh my gosh, it's moving while I'm reading. That way I can decide how much I want to strive or not. And I still get a sense of achievement. I agree with that. I'm really careful about that word strive because I find that I'm such a striver. Someone else said, I don't make resolutions. I set intentions throughout the year. I'm learning to accept my HSP nature. I would like to learn to live in alignment with my HSP introvert nature.
Yeah.
So would all of us, or I mean the 70% of us who are introverts. But you 30% extroverts, I think you have even a harder time at it. Yeah, you know, just sort of like the men. How do you resolve?
Yeah.
What works? We'll read some more of these comments, but I'd like to hear from you. What works for you? What helps you make those positive shifts? What helps you reset? I always think I like to break down resolution, you know, recommit to my solutions, because I think you know what works, but it always helps me to hear. So please tell me what works for you. And to also be thinking about resolving. You know, resolve is to resolve the things that aren't working.
I think one of the most important things when having either resolutions or to make them what was the other word, intentions, is to have a really strong motivation. And the motivation comes when you have more clarity on what it is that you want to try to achieve. And so when you have a clear goal, like this is what I want to achieve, then you can also, I mean, oftentimes it goes wrong because you don't have the motivation. You lose it somewhere, right? It's too hard, it's too difficult, it's too challenging. And so I think if you have your motivation, if you really know why you're doing it and what will help you along the way, I think that's one of the most important things to make it more successful.
I think I agree. And it's really important that we create small little bits of change that we want to make. You know, you heard me, I want to sweat every day, but really, I think I would be good if I just walked 10 more minutes than I would have naturally, because I'll feel so much better when I do that small baby step that I will start to do more. In fact, let's throw that baby step, Swami, if you wouldn't mind, throw baby steps, that YouTube video I made in the chat. Somebody said, my resolution is to speak up, to make the medical professionals understand my needs as a highly sensitive person. My sensitivity and intuition have saved my life from unnecessary procedures. It's very hard to navigate in a touch, I'm so bad at this, in a tough, rational, and fact-based medical field as an HSP. It is so true. It's so hard. And I can't tell if this is a person who is in the medical field or is using Western medicine in their own lives, or maybe both. But I'm actually about to make a video on surviving doctors as a highly sensitive person, because it's hard. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I do love the baby steps part. That's also one of the things that I always try to in at least one big goal to cut that up in smaller pieces. I mean, if you want to, I don't know, for instance, want to lose weight, then it's not a good goal, I think, to say like I want to lose 50 pounds, because I mean that's a lot. You can, it's more helpful to start with smaller steps, and so it's also then more achievable and easier to attain, I think.
Right. And I mean, nutrition's a huge one for highly sensitive people, since our bodies are also so sensitive usually. So I like to try to go with just eating a little more protein, so I'm a little more grounded sometimes. It's just, I'm going to pull out a few more of, there's a lot of stuff in the chat. So let's see if we can pull a few of those out here. Don't forget to raise your hand if you'd like to share on screen. Intention doesn't have the sense of pressure to accomplish the way resolution does. Yeah, I agree. It feels here's another one. The idea for intention is awesome. I intend to experience a greater level of connection to my sensitive side, creativity, calm state, and wisdom. Thank you. Very small steps in thinking, what can I do today, rather than focusing on the distant future? I found all these tiny changes really mount up after a while. Yeah, and you know, there's this general rule in psychology and habit forming that if you stick to three things that you would like to do, and you may have 3 big things, and then you break them up into 3 smaller things. And can you break those smaller things into 3? Because our brains can handle 3. Here's somebody says, if we attach what we want to a core value and stay focused on that, then it's easier to stay motivated. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to keep it positive. If people say like, I don't want to do this anymore, or I want to be more healthier, stuff like that, I think it's better to state it in a very positive way. Like, I want to achieve a healthier living style because I want to be healthy, instead of I don't want to live unhealthy. So stating it in a positive way is, I think, is also very, very important, to focus on what you want instead of what you don't want. And I always say that if you focus on what you don't want, you will get more of that. And if you focus on what you do want, you will get more of that. So, and the thing that you focus on will grow. And so focus positive.
Absolutely. But I'm careful about that. I totally agree and ascribe to all of that. And I feel kind of cautious about it, because as highly sensitive people, we have such a discriminating way of seeing the world. And, you know, discriminating, that can be a bad thing. But remember that as you're deep processing and really thinking about all the things that you notice and observe, that's just information coming in. And sometimes having some negative thoughts, or I could make this better, or I could do better, or I should do better. You have to be careful not to get into the shoulda, coulda, woulda, but it's not just because you see all the things that could be improved that you're paying attention to the negative. It's really good and positive that we see all the things that we could improve. We just need to choose small things for ourselves, because you know what? As much as it might be a superpower, we are not superhumans. And having this brain that is so much more active, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of space. And I would love it if we could just all be so much more kind to ourselves about that.
Mhm. Yeah, so true. And absolutely, I think you're right. I mean, we shouldn't, no, there's a should. But I think it's important to the goals you have to state them in a positive way. And I didn't mean to say that everything needs to be looked at in a positive way, because I think that that's indeed what you're saying, Alane, is that people want to focus too much on everything being positive. But I think that the positive can only stand next to the negative. So you have to see the negative also to make it real and to accept it into your life. And then it doesn't mean that you have to agree with it being there, but it's there and it's there for a reason. And so that is giving you more sort of like fuel to go to what you want, to the positive things. I think that's very important distinguishment. Yes,
I agree. And Annette, I think you're so good at this, at helping people break it down so that they can find the positive. And, you know, it's really interesting. I was one of the things I love about working with and being friends with Annette is her temperament is different than mine. You know, I'm a glass half empty temperament. I have a more negative mood and I'm really intense. And so everything I think that's negative, I have a really, really, really intense reaction and thought process about. But I always say this for HSPs like me, just because you think it doesn't mean that it's your truth. You know, it's like, I don't have to pay that much attention to all the crazy thoughts I have running around in my head.
Yeah.
I want to try to find those little pieces that I can use to help others and to help myself. And, you know, and say, thank you. Thank you, brain. I really appreciate you. Sometimes I wish I could turn you off, but I really appreciate all the thinking you're doing. But it doesn't have to be my truth, you know?
No, I think we take our thoughts so seriously and we follow up on them. And that's, I think, part of the stress also that we create for ourselves sometimes, because if you think like, I should do more of this or I should do more of that, and if you don't question that thought, you immediately get stressed out about it because it creates such a pressure. And if you just think about it first, like, okay, I could do more maybe, but should I do more really? Is this really true? Or is this just a thought? Or and so I think questioning your thoughts for reality, if it's not some sort of like fiction, because I mean, a lot of what we think of in our heads and what we think is often totally not based on reality. And so to keep that in mind and to think about things and like what is coming, all the things that you experience, they're kind of like sort of your compass, how to explore things. Like if something is happening that you don't like, you'll just adjust, right? And you'll do a different thing to make it better. And so in that way, also the negative things that are happening are also helping you moving on and also giving you guidance, like, this is not working very well for me. So what could I do then?
Right.
So that I think is very important to think of and to be aware of, that what you're thinking is not always truth.
So you might have noticed I've spotlighted Annette and me again because we're at the very
Yeah, I
end
was
of
kind
our
of like,
time.
oh.
Sorry,
Suddenly.
Somebody put a couple of great book resources in the chat, Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits. And those habit setting tools are some of which we've been saying here are very helpful. So we're just going to make a few closing comments here and then we'll stop this conversation. It will be posted in various places on social media and on my YouTube channel. So I hope that you will come and comment and share your experience, strength, and hope with the community through these public forums where we'll post this discussion. And we hope that you will join us for future ones. We've been coming on Facebook Live, almost every month now for some little conversations. And you can find the recordings of the Alane and Annette show um, on my YouTube channel as well as in the Alane Aaron Facebook group. But I want to say this, one thing that helps me is I write down all those thoughts I have, all the things that are both positive and critical. I make the list, check it twice. No, actually, I just make the list to get it out of my head. And I think it's very helpful. I think writing is a hugely important tool for highly sensitive people. And at the same time, just because I thought it, just because I wrote it down, doesn't mean I have to fix it all. In fact, when you have a sensitive brain, a more reactive brain that's processing and thinking so much and having such strong reactions and so much noticing, it means that really you probably want to find your top 10% to pay attention to. 10% only of all the thoughts that you have. You don't really need more, and probably more is not going to be helpful. So that's besides the fact of slowing down and gathering more moss and kind of shifting that, all those, 57 years of socialization that I have to gather no moss. I want to wish for all of us in the world that we have more time at that optimal level of arousal, neither overstimulated nor understimulated, and that we find the things that we need in order to find that optimal level of arousal, which is different for every person.
Yeah. Absolutely, totally true, I think. And if I can share as well, my personal intention has been for a couple of years now, it keeps coming back every time, is just to be more me, more authentic, more sharing myself to the world, because I think that's often also that we adapt too much to the outside world. And I think once we share more of ourselves, and we have so much to share, right? So much good things, and every HSP has in a way something that this world needs, I think. And so that's my intention every year for the last, I think, 3 years almost now, to really be more myself, and to share also my thoughts on things, because we just keep it to ourselves because we think we're being judged and everything. So being more authentic and sharing that more. And what also works well for me when I have other intentions that I have throughout the year is to really be specific about them, to really have not just a general thought like I want to do this better or I want to do that better, but to really break it down into like, okay, how would that look? And what would I do then? And what are the small steps that I can take? So really preparing well for it and having like this sort of plan. How am I going to accomplish this? Yeah, that's
so Annette, I really want to have you put your website. Will you throw your links in the chat for folks? There are mine. So I really appreciate everyone being so interested in being here and being a part of this with us and sharing in the chat and in the comments. It's really important. One of the 5 to thrive for highly sensitive people is to be in a community with other highly sensitive people. It's a key to resilience to know others like you. And as the first person who shared said, when you're isolated, it is so much harder to honor your creative trait, and I mean your sensitive trait and your own creativity. Everything is harder when you're isolated. So how can you find community? Well, Annette and I both are hosting communities and lots of opportunities for people to connect with other HSPs. So we hope that we will see you out there in our programs and in the Facebook and wherever it is. Come follow us on all the social media platforms, because we both, I think, I'm going to speak for you, Annette, we share the mission of helping the highly sensitive people of the world, and using the training and the gifts and the mentoring that we've received from Alane Aaron and from all of our mentors to try to help HSPs live a better and more fulfilled life. Because really, folks, the world needs us. It needs you. So thank you so much.